choose to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
Inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
It's quite plain, sir, that Herr Hitler could not admit defeat in his air attack on Great Britain without sustaining most serious...
The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the empire.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Debrief. I'm your host, Kawa and Lane. This is my co-host, Lane Duhan. And this is our 5th episode. I don't know how many times we're going to keep saying what number episode this is, but I feel like at least in the single kind of digit episodes, we'll keep saying it till we get to 10. Then maybe we'll stop. But this is our 5th episode. We're happy to be here. So far, we're doing great. This podcast is just going to get better and better over time. But for now, I think we've kind of found a nice little system, something that you guys enjoy based on your feedback. I'm here and I'm home in Houston, as you can see by my gun wall behind me. That's how you know I'm home. Lane looks like he's at home too. How's your 4th, man?
It was good. I was during the daytime, we were kind of out and about with some family members. So the nighttime looked what a typical married, being 40-year-old and 36-year-old with a child on the way looked, sitting at the house hanging out. Nothing too crazy.
Was your neighborhood doing fireworks on the street or anything?
I heard a couple, apparently, and I don't know if this is true, but I read that Nashville's downtown fireworks show is in like the top 5 in the nation. And I saw some pictures and videos. I'm kind of disappointed that I missed it. They did this huge fireworks show. And then out on the East Bank, where that is, Kawa, yep. They do this drone show, which was over 10,000 drones. They did the American flag and a few other things. So kind of, I guess there was like 300 something thousand turnout. Downtown Nashville, which is the largest ever for 4th of July. So I feel like I missed out a little bit, but overall it seemed to be a generally safe celebration in Nashville.
Yeah, I've seen the fireworks show in Nashville a few times when I was there, stationed there, and man, it's always like extravagant. I didn't get to see the drone show. I'm hoping maybe to catch that. I heard about that a couple of years ago. So 10,000 drones, dude. That's kind of
And then
cool visual.
There was a video showing them. I'll send it to you when I find it again. But like they're all launching off in their phases. You know what I mean? It's just kind of insane to see them do that. What'd you get into for the 4th of July?
Honestly, not much. The family kind of dispersed on this 4th of July. People were kind of doing their own things. I wasn't even with the kids this 4th of July, so they were with friends doing fireworks. But it was not much. I actually went to an Afghan restaurant out in the boonies. They have like this ranch. They got like a petting zoo. They got all like a little the whole outdoor patio thing with the hookah. And then they did some fireworks there, but it wasn't like an actual fireworks show. So pretty chill 4th of July. In fact, I kind of read that it was a kind of an anticlimactic. What am I trying to say?
That's right.
Yeah, anticlimactic. That this 4th of July was not like the most celebrated 4th of July. Is you're already laughing. You don't even know where I'm going with this. But I mean, I don't know, man. That was just one article I read it of some Arizona paper or something like that. I don't know how this 4th of July was celebrated by Americans. I guess that we always kind of find that out in weeks to come when we see like the media coverage. But I feel like maybe like the vibe of this 4th of July or whatever we were kind of feeling this year it just wasn't all there. Like our hearts weren't into it, man. I don't know. And I'm not speaking for everybody, of course, but there's a lot of shit going on in our country. And honestly, man, it's, as a society, I feel like it's kind of affecting our mental health a little bit, like what am I trying to say? Morale is not high in this country. Maybe, I mean, that's just my 2 cents, but well, I hope everybody celebrated.
My observations were the same. If you got on social media, I don't know if people recall the movie, and maybe I'm showing my age here. The Independence Day seemed to be happening, where the aliens have invaded and we're on the brink of extinction, based on some of these people's reactions on social media to Trump's big beautiful bill. Uh, if you didn't know better, you would think it was a reincarnation of slavery. But with that said, I'm sure there's a lot of things to debate and agree or disagree with in this bill, but apparently it elicited a lot of emotional reaction from people, on both sides, by the way, not just one side, both sides. So,
Yeah.
I think that's the backdrop, or call it the backdrop, of the reasons not to celebrate 4th of July, because some feel we took steps backwards, I guess. And I guess we'll discuss a little bit of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe people probably celebrate it just like they do any other year. And that's not what we're saying, I guess. We're just saying that, like, it just felt like the mood wasn't all there this year. So I guess we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. But Trump's big beautiful bill probably is a factor. In some people's cases, it is a factor. I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons to this bill, Lane. It's a big bill, obviously. I know you and I have some of our talking points down, but there's definitely some good things with this bill, I guess, depending on who you ask. But for most people, I think it would be a good thing. And then there's obviously some things that are wrong with this bill as well. Like the tax relief. I'll just kind of start it with the tax relief stuff, and we can bounce around wherever. But I think the tax relief for individuals and families is great. You know, I think the child tax credit is like up a couple $100 to like $2,200 or $2,300 now per kid, which, hey, I mean, for some families that's nothing. For some families that's everything. So to each their own on that one. Overtime pay, that one. Look, I'm not in a field where I work overtime, Lane. I don't know if you have overtime in your work structure, but I feel like that they got a little shafted with that cap. It was like a $25,000 cap on overtime, which I don't necessarily believe is the correct answer. But I also don't make overtime, so I can't argue either way. But I know that people who do make overtime tend to make a lot more than that in a year, especially like law enforcement and some of these first responder type, jobs. But I guess the one that's good is the 25,000 cap on tips. I mean, I know some bartenders in downtown Nashville that are
They do more than that,
clearing way more than $25,000 every year in tips. But I guess that's not a bad, a bad cap at that either. But some of the corporate ones, Lane, is probably where a lot of people get upset. They kind of describe it as, well, this should stimulate the economy and give incentive to more manufacturing and production. But I feel like what practically in its practical application, what it's really doing is kind of creating more of a gap between the wealthy top 5% of America and whoever else, the other percentage of America. I think that's what it does in its practicality, but they can pitch it however they want. There's something about state and local taxes too. I forget that they did. It was like the cap went up for state and local taxes quite a bit, actually, like almost 4 times what it was. So, like I said, pros and cons for that one. But then there's obviously some negative impacts for the bill too. Well, I mean, I don't see the environmental stuff as negative, to be honest, but I don't know too much about that one. Like, it said something about clean energy incentives. They're cutting that or something. But I guess, how often do people use clean energy incentives for their homes and stuff? Is that more of a corporate thing? Who knows? The tariffs, though, I think that's my biggest gripe with this whole thing is the tariffs. And I kind of came prepared today to talk about tariffs a little bit more because just in 2025 alone, I was doing research on how has Trump's tariff strategy, not one thing he's doing, but just the overall strategy, how has it affected the price of goods, I guess, in general for Americans, just in the 6 months or 7 months now that we've been in 2025. And overall, it's not good. And I know that 6 months is not enough data, and I'm hoping we're going down a path where that comes to fruition. But in the 6 months of Trump's tariff strategy to produce more manufacturing and production in America, it hasn't been working. It hasn't been working yet. Even though he claims, big companies are going to open up factories and stuff in the Midwest or whatever, that's great. But the numbers aren't there yet. And right now, what it's doing is like the price of gas is up, even though he claims it's down. It's not. It's about the same as where it was, and it's kind of about 3 to 5% up. The cost of goods, like groceries and stuff, are up anywhere from 7 to 11%, depending on the state that you live in. So far, the tariff plan is just not working out the way they pitched it, and not that I believed it from the get go. I don't know. What do you think about the tariffs? Because I guess now July 9th is coming up, right, for some deadline.
Yep. I'll tell you this. I should stop saying that. That's like one of my little comfort terms, I think, to prepare myself for what I'm about to say. Not to back up a little bit, because I had a few things on the big beautiful bill. Is that I do not claim to be a legislature professional. Again, it's easy for people out there to go, he said no tax on tips. Now there's a 25,000. I don't know if people know how Capitol Hill work. And as I just proclaimed that I'm not an expert, I would argue that his intent was to put no taxes on tips. Again, not to try to educate our viewership on the government, but Trump is not the end all be all say all. If that's his intent, it's up to the House of Representatives and senators to come up with a bill and draft a bill that carries through, or hopefully his intent. Now, if anyone's seen one of these bills, I would I'll try not to go off topic too far. I'd reorientate people back to the border bill that was about 18 to 20% about the border and 80% about sending missiles to Ukraine. Because what people you'll hear in a debate environment will say, well, Trump vetoed the last border bill when we tried to do border legislature. False. Yes, he did. He did not sign that bill. That is true. However, he didn't sign it because the majority, and when I say majority, 80% of it didn't even address the border. It addressed other things that didn't include the United States and Mexican border. Now, all that to say, there's multiple things in this big, beautiful bill that I would argue on some fronts or I agree with, and on other fronts not. I think the fundamental conservative in me says we need to stop spending excessive money. I also will say that people attribute partially the reaction to the issue we had in 2020 nationwide. I don't want to say the word because I don't know how sensitive the platforms are to it, but apparently they have attributed some of our reactions, restrictions, and things to him and his administration. However, when the next administration took over, inflation took a rise. I don't attribute it just to that administration. I think the event that we all went through had an impact. So my point being is the beauty and balance of our political system. Typically, if you look in the history of our country, somewhere between dual term or single term presidents, the beauty of our country is we've had a different approach to politics and strategy on policy every 4 to 8 years, meaning Democrat, Republican, conservative, progressive. And I think the beauty of all that balances out. So I say all that to say on the big, beautiful bill, I'll be honest with you, Medicaid, Medicare, I've seen a huge uproar in that. You didn't mention that specifically. I'll tell you, I am sure, how do I say this? Anytime someone debates me on something, if they have to use the most extreme case to justify their perspective, I kind of turn them off. You could pick a multitude of sensitive topics, immigration, abortion, whatever. If you have to use the most extreme right, the most extreme left example to say this is why this matters, I don't listen to you, because those extreme cases or examples are typically very, very not minor. That's the wrong word. It's very
low
margin or low, statistically speaking. I shouldn't say minor. That's a huge thing to deal with, no matter which one I just mentioned. However, when we start talking snap cuts of must work 80 hours a month, unless you're disabled, unless you have dependents, what we call dependents in the military, children or people that you pay or financially responsible for in your household. So all those things being said, there's a multitude of things that we could address in this bill that I don't think we could do in an hour. But there's multiple sections that when people make claims I heard a guy the other day say they're coming for your VA benefits and your retirements, all you veterans that voted for Trump. This is what you get. And it's like, what are you talking about? That's not in the bill. He goes, well, in Project 2025, I turned off my ears. Like, dude, I'm not listening to you. So I say all that to say, to get to the tariffs, I may slightly disagree with you. I don't know if they're going to have the desired effects in the immediate term, Calva. I would also remind, not necessarily you, because it's not you I'm talking to, some of these anti-Trumps. It's been 6 months he's been in office and he's accomplished more, whether you agree with it or not, just activity than the previous administration did in 4 years. I think people can disagree with me and highlight their 2 to 3 what they perceive to be victories of that administration. I don't think the tariffs were ever going to have an immediate impact of success. I think it was nothing more than a bargaining chip to get these countries to the table to hopefully renegotiate. But I do agree with you. The data is out and it's pretty clear that it's had a negative and an adverse impact on prices of goods in export and import. I will say there's countries, and I say Vietnam. I think it's Vietnam. I could be wrong. It's one of the lower impoverished countries over there. Just agreed to a 0% tariff deal, which is the first time in over 100 years with the U.S. Now, that country also doesn't import or export a majority of goods with us, but it's just, I think there's a lot of those countries that were, I don't want to use the word getting rich, because let's make no mistake, Vietnam is not rich. But my point being is I think there's a lot of peripheral trades that are happening that we're paying an excess of. And I think he, for good or bad, whether you agree or disagree, I think he's trying to take a business approach to it. Now, we don't need to peel the onion back on the international effects of that and international relations and foreign policy. I think you and I could go very deep on that. I agree with you. Prices are up, not the best. I don't know if the long-term impacts are going to carry through because he's a lame duck president. I think you would have to see his successor and the potential successor of that person to keep this going for it to have an extremely negative impact. At some point, it will be reversed in the next 3 to 8 years, depending if we have JD Vance or someone follows his tenureship.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's too early to tell. You're right. The data was just now getting gathered. It'd be interesting to see where we're at the end of the year. But even a year is not going to be enough for this strategy to really kind of give us any fruition, because tariffs are not a short-term plan. It's just more of a short-term threat or condition. That's what it's designed to do. The whole reason tariffs were invented was to bring balance to certain industries like steel and lumber. And anything that kind of travels internationally was to bring balance, but they were never supposed to be a permanent thing, and they were never supposed to be a weaponized thing. But Trump is a businessman; he's going to use big numbers to scare people, and then you see the knee-jerk reaction from like China and Canada and some other places that are saying, "Well, cool, we'll just impose them on you." It's tit for tat. At the end of the day, the citizens of each country are paying extra because their governments are using this system in a not so efficient way. And so we'll see. I mean, if this is a chess move where he thinks now he's going to have leverage on these countries and he's going to get a better deal at the end of it, then cool. He's got 4 years to do that, and we're just along for the ride, and obviously here giving commentary on it. But speaking of the tariff deadline, I'm not too, is this the tariff deadline that's supposed to like shoot the tariffs back up to?
Yeah, so I think to pick back up, I was about to say that there's 12 countries on that list of the deadline, and to your point, you got the number correctly. It was 70%. So I think the discussion is either to resume the 70% tariffs and or continue the pause, given that UK, Vietnam, China, EU, India, Japan are still at the table negotiating.
I mean, if we go back to 70%, is it going back to 70% like he initially imposed and then he put the pause on that?
It says reimposing tariffs up to 70%. So I'm assuming some of them or a variation of the tariffs were up at 70.
Which means they're just going to have retaliatory tariffs hit us back with those as well.
Some of those countries listed, though, have already completed deals, so it doesn't apply to all. It's just those were the original countries of significance.
A lot of apparel comes out of Vietnam. I know a lot of soft goods for the tactical industry. I know a lot of people. I know a few off the top of my head that make their kit, their chest rigs, their body armor carriers or plate carriers in Vietnam and those countries, Laos.
Well, real quick on the tariff thing, I would, again, I don't care who you are and what your opinions are. Military guy here that took a couple economics classes at Penn State, I'll tell you, economics is hard, and it is very difficult to get right on a macro and micro level. There are different approaches and different effects depending on what you do to interest rates and things like that. And I would argue, after all these decades, if there was a right answer, we would have already mastered it. I think with the variables of the human element, social and international developments, there's so many variables that comes to economics that it's hard to say that A or B is good or bad. So that's a lot of saying nothing. I'm not saying that I support or against it. I just would caution people before they say it's good or bad or be binary about it, to kind of appreciate the fact that I don't think we've gotten economics right since I've been born. We've had the 2008 real estate crash, and then we've had the tech boom, and then so there's been things that have happened, and things that have wars and debt and other things that have happened over the last 2 to 3 decades of my life that have all contributed to
Yeah, and
good and bad.
some people are saying that we're on the verge of another recession
Yeah,
too. So I don't know what all the
yeah,
factors are for that to actually become a thing, but uh, I mean, we're not exactly in a good place economically, and now we're on top of throwing all this money at foreign countries. I feel like there's just been a lot of neglect here in our own country as well. So the formula is broken, and I don't know what the formula is, but I can see it with my own eyes. I'm not an economics guy myself or a political science guy myself, but you can just
yeah,
see
yeah,
it. You feel it in your
yeah.
daily life. You know. Um, well, according to Elon Musk, he can fix all that, Lane, because he just announced his America Party.
Oh yeah. It's almost as
Thoughts?
if you take two people that have had a lot of acknowledgement when they walk in the room. They don't like when things don't go their way. And I think this bill, he keeps mentioning the spending, and I believe he has a belief in that, given the nature of Doge and what he wanted that to be. Two things that stick out to me about this, though, that makes me question the authenticity of his concerns. I know that Vivek Ramaswamy, when he bowed out of the Doge game, the narrative is and
Mhm.
will continue to be because he wanted to run for the governor of Ohio, and he is doing that at the moment. Um, I think,
Yeah, he said he's about to dump a lot of money into that, isn't
yeah,
it?
I
Like
mean,
90
my
million
point
of
is,
his
I
own
think
money
that
into that.
Vivek knew there was going to be a lot more challenge in Doge than initially. He wanted to just get rid of everything. And I think people in the DC Beltway and the Elons and Trumps were like, look, man, you just can't get rid of things. Like, legally, you can't just do that. And I think he saw the writing
Yeah.
on the wall that there was going to be some ego bumping, agreeing and disagreeing. There's stories where Elon has punched, what's his name? I can't remember the cabinet member's name, but he, like, apparently Elon punched this guy in a cabinet meeting in the eye. So I say that to say that I think also there's a lot of what's the word, you said it earlier, cutbacks for green energy, the mandate for EVs. So these things are going to have a bottom line. When I say bottom line, I mean on the financials of Tesla and other companies that clearly Elon is not happy about. But he's going to just frame it in the terms of the massive and wasteful spending that's a part of this bill.
Well, he's got a point because, and I'm not trying to validate his point, but it's a good point. I mean, adding 3 to 5 to the deficit over the next 10 years, that's just this
Yeah.
bill. What about all the bills that we passed since or before?
Mm-hmm.
And then all the bills that we're going to pass? Like, we're just going in the wrong
Yeah.
direction. He's not going to be able to clean it up like he thinks he's going to. He might be able to put a dent in it, you know, And let's just say he has this plan. And I mean, right now this America Party is just an idea because he needs. There's so much legality that goes into that, right? He has to file with the FEC. He has to get a certain number of people on board from each state, so that each state now accepts this third party. He has to, I think, um, probably fight some court battles. I feel like the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are both going to probably sue him on this.
Oh.
You know, I mean, there's so many legalities. So let's just say this party gets up and going, then he's gonna have to recruit people, right? He's gonna have to pull people from the left, which a lot of people are already saying that if he's like a centrist kind of, I don't know, libertarian-ish centrist, I don't know, one of those hybrid of that, then he could probably pull from the middle quite a bit, but he could probably pull from the left more. So, but then he'd have to get some. I mean, this is like, it's almost like we're talking about like fantasy football, almost in a sense, right? Like, hopefully you get some big players that'll kind of carry it.
Yeah, and Kawa, I know I'm going to quote you. You're not a tit for tat person, and at my age of 40, I would like to claim the same. But I'm a little tit for tat. So by nature, do you know the last time the Democrats held all three branches of government?
No.
2021 to 23.
Okay.
Fix it. You had your chance. Fix it. Guess what? You did nothing. You did nothing.
Yeah.
So guess what? I said this back when Trump won election in 2016. You guys sure y'all want to do investigation after investigation and collusion, and you and again, it's not because I condone the tit for tat, Kawa. I know humans. And my point is, well, what's good in 17? Guess what becomes good in 20? Guess what becomes even more good? Back in our Louisiana grammar, more gooder. Guess what's more gooder in 24? We're going to get some get back. So again, I don't condone it. These are politicians. And to your point, you're dealing with the national budget and people's lives and livelihoods. So I don't think you should be playing a video game of tit for tat, but I am not surprised. I'm not shocked to sit here and go, all these people on the TikTokies and all these other socials just flipping out saying the end of the world just took place. We're going broke now. It's like, you go, I would challenge time. Next time you see a video of someone outraging, go on their profile, scroll back to 21 to 23 and see how many videos they were making of outrage, of a bad bill, 13 service members losing their life at the Afghanistan at Abbey Gate. Like, go pull up and see if those people were as outraged as that. And my opinion is, if you're not outraged at that stuff, don't become outraged now because it's convenient, because you hate a person. And that doesn't apply to you, by the way. I think I know your positions very well. You're not in the bandwagon. You're not pushing it and you're not pulling it. You're just kind of pointing out, like, look at you people on the bandwagon on these things. So that's not targeted at you. It's just kind of encapsulating our failure to address these issues and actually attempt to truly and authentically having some authenticity to solve them, or truly try to solve them.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely not a bandwagon guy, but I was close to the bandwagon, and then I feel like as time goes on, the bandwagon is getting
just
further
politics.
and further away from
It's the same political game each way.
Yeah, and it is politics. We can laugh at this now, this America Party. It sounds cheesy just by its name, but Elon has the money to pull this off if he wants to. And if he lands like just one person that is worth mentioning, that is nameworthy, I think he could probably build some momentum with this. It just depends on how serious he is, because I don't think Elon really cares. No. I think he's doing this out of spite, to be honest.
I guess I would offer, though, Cal, what's the end? Okay, you get your guy. This is what this party stands for. I still see you run into the same issues we talked about last episode, is politician runs for office. He wins office, he or she. Now she's in the seat. Right. She now has to run for re-election because it's like keeping your job. And who are you? What opinions, what positions are you taking? So now it's not Republican or Democrat, but now you're for EVs because your primary donor is Tesla, Elon Musk. So like we're still running into the
Yeah.
same issue where campaign funding is poisoning our politics. And even if you start this new party with the best intent, we're not going to spend, we're for the American people. Well, yeah, Elon, until that person now is tied to you and has to vote for everything EV related. So I'm not trying to be a
I'm
pessimist here. I just think that it's just another flavor of an ice cream that we haven't tried before. But by the time we eat it and get rid of it, it's still sugar and not good for you.
I mean, he's proposing the same things that anybody on the right or the left
Yeah.
could propose. You know, like fiscal conservatism. Yeah, duh, dude. Everybody thinks that we should save money and not just blow it on stuff. You know, he's talking about deficit reduction. Again, no shit. You know, I what is like the one, oh, modernizing AI in the workforce. I think that's his niche kind of thing that he's bringing in. Obviously, because of his background, he wants to turn everybody into cyborgs and transhumanism and whatever else. but,
When how's that good for us?
but
Like what American hears that and goes, "Oh, great. My $50,000
well,
job a year is now gone. That's great for me."
well, part of his one of his pillars of this party is a higher birth rate for
I
American
do agree with
citizens.
that. Yeah. He speaks
Okay.
passionately about that. I think he said that's the single biggest threat to humanity right now is not, you know,
Is that why he has
well,
14
by
kids with
yeah,
like
5,
7
6
different
women.
women?
Yeah. So I would argue he should
Uh,
research the stats on fatherless house homes and the impact of that. I don't think, you know, but I guess in his mind, he means he thinks generating kids is just getting more humans is the answer. I would argue they need to still be productive. And there's plenty of rich people with rich kids that could give us an example of how things go awry and money doesn't guarantee, you know, good citizenship and good stewardship as a civilian in our society.
I mean, higher birth rates. It's, you know, you got the Bill Gates out there that are saying there's too many people in this world and we need population
Yeah.
reduction. You know, and then he introduces things like the jab and stuff, and or advocates for that. You know, like what is a higher population going to get us other than more mouths to feed? You know, we could say yes, we'll have a stronger workforce because all these people, we're assuming all these people will go down some type of education system where they will now become productive members of the society. But for the most part, most of the people that go to college that have the intention of graduating college with at least a bachelor's degree don't even get a job in the degree that they graduate with. You know, so we're not necessarily plugging in holes with subject matter experts, or at least at an entry level, but it looks like and by his logic, we would just have more people to fill more fast food jobs and Walmart jobs and maybe Amazon delivery and you know, those type of logistical type things, which a lot of that is becoming automated by AI now anyway. You know, so then where are all these people going to work? Where are they going to live? Because the housing market is getting bought up by corporations. You know, good luck trying to find a house you're buying from a family these days. I mean, there's so many problems with this, and he can spit out all these things about modernizing this and advocating for higher birth rates and reducing the deficit. But like Lane said, if you don't have a solid plan, if you're not actually saying how you're going to do this, then you're just another politician. And I don't think he has it in him, to be honest. So we'll see how long this America party lasts. For now, we'll just we'll just look forward to the entertainment that comes from Elon Musk. Um,
Yeah. I think those two are
so
going to keep going at it. You know what I mean? I think someone famous the other day said someone needs to check on Elon, tell him to get off the ketamine, allegedly. I'm not trying to get sued by Elon. The dude could end my life with a swipe of a pen and put 0.08 of his worth against that to do that. So I'm not trying to get in trouble with Elon, but you know, I just think two people in their 50s, you know, I don't know, Trump's in his 70s, I think. You know, when they're just on a social media app, just jabbing at each other, it's like, what have we come to as a society? Like, generally, your men of your society and your elder stages of life are supposed to be the wisdom, the example, and how to behave. And it's just the decorum of our society has just went awry. It's wild to see where we've become.
yeah. I mean, Trump as a president should know
Yeah.
better. And if you're going to communicate, dude, have somebody proofread your shit, because like right now you just, somebody gave you your phone like unsupervised, you know, and you're just posting away. that's not the answer. You look, the perception that you give off if you're listening to this podcast, President Trump, the perception that you give off to the American people is that you're just kind of a fire and forget type of person. You'll say one thing one week, and then we won't hear it about it again, or you'll say you'll do something and then there's no action taken. But like, at least on your posts, on your Twitter posts, you just sound like an angry high school student. I can't even say an angry college student, because I feel like a college student would like articulate and structure their tweets and their posts a little bit better than he would. It just sounds childish. It sounds childish. I don't think he cares about his perception, because he's sitting in the highest seat that this country has to offer. But that doesn't mean that he needs to just somebody needs to take his phone. He needs a screen time out. I feel like
anything after 8:00 at night, you go to sign on and it's like, no, your screen time is locked.
Yeah. Somebody needs to get him on a parent plan. Well, let's talk about the the latest with Iran and Israel. I don't know what you've heard or what you've read in the last few
I saw
days.
this topic and they want to talk about Iranian nuclear program, and I sarcastically read it and thought it should say they should talk about Israel's nuclear program. Let's talk about that one. Let's not.
No, you can't talk about that one, Lane. You can't talk about Israel.
I'm laughing because I understand the
what
sensitivity.
What are you talking about? Yeah, Israel doesn't have a nuke plan. What are you talking about? No, they didn't steal technology and secrets from us.
Yeah, I saw that. And I mean, look, obviously the Iran's paused their IAEA cooperation. Some would argue they were never that cooperative. They were allowing inspections to happen, but they were I'll use the word filter / denying access to certain aspects of that program, meaning certain buildings, certain areas. Yeah. When the initial agreement that was drawn up by the Barack Obama administration was supposed to literally say, hey, we can come and inspect. And when I say we, I don't mean Americans. I just mean the actual entity that is that, the IAEA and that organization. And over the last 2 years, I don't want to say 2 years, don't quote me, but the last couple of years or months has stated that they had became more and more less cooperative. Now, why, you ask? Well, because they were becoming increasingly frustrated with America's influence within the region, and they thought that there were certain other things being violated, so why should they cooperate? So that's an very overgeneralization. I know I could throw more details on that, but I'm sure you'll add some details here that I'm lacking.
Well, no, I mean, you hit it. I mean, I kind of said this before all this happened. Like, Iran, for the most part, has cooperated with all the IAEA regulations and rules and inspections and routine stuff that they have to do. They've cooperated with most. I will say they probably haven't cooperated 100%, but nobody really does. I mean, the U.S. doesn't allow the IAEA to inspect all of our facilities either. Mm-hmm. Israel completely just denies right off the bat that they even have nukes in the first place. So they don't even allow IAEA people there, which is insane to me, that this double standard that's been built and established, and people just go with it. People expect Iran not to have nukes. If you think about it, Iran is isolated. Like we talked about this episode or two back, how Iran is basically isolated from the rest of the Muslim world. And so therefore they have people like China and Russia backing them, who are not Muslim nations, but they have agreements that, hey, because we're neighbors, I watch your back, you watch mine, or whatever, to some degree. But because Iran is still a Middle Eastern country, technically the most Middle Eastern country, it's supposed to just comply with all these things, or because they don't comply as much, or because we don't have good relations with them, and they have the tension with Israel, that all of a sudden they're just doing everything wrong, or they're just always in the wrong. I don't believe that's true. I believe a lot of that is propaganda. And I think that if the IAEA themselves, and you got people like Tulsi Gabbard, who is one of our people, saying, hey, They've complied with everything inspection wise, IAEA, all of our intelligence reports. Everything says that Iran is not building actual nuclear weapons. Yes, they're enriching uranium. And yes, maybe they're perhaps at 60%, but that doesn't mean that they're going to make warheads. That carries no weight in the international community. Like fuck Tulsi Gabbard. Doesn't matter what she says. Forget what the IAEA says. It just doesn't matter because whatever Trump thinks and whatever Israel thinks, that's just it. That's just kind of how the world works. And then of course the UK and France and everybody else and Germany jumps on board because they kind of have to. They're the cool kids, you know. And again, we're not saying Iran is innocent, and who knows, Iran maybe is developing nuclear warheads. But even if they were, why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they? Every one of their enemies or apparent enemies have nukes. Israel has nukes. The U.S. has nukes. India has nukes. I mean, you got, what is it? Pakistan has nukes. Turkey has nukes. Everybody in the world has nukes. So why shouldn't Iran have nukes? I'm talking about actual warheads, right?
Yeah, I think.
Why
Yeah, I
shouldn't they?
mean, I guess the counterpoint to that would be, hey, Iran, if you're gonna enrich uranium, can you at least put it into practice at the commercial level, meaning power and whatever? At least see, if I was a strategist or a consultant for Iran, I'd be like, hey, man, we need to build a nuclear power plant. We need to do some nuclear things. So it shows that we're using the uranium that we're enriching for good reasons, you know, at low enrichment utilization. And then maybe on the side, we can do this stuff. So, but I will say, I got to be careful. I know where some of the data is coming from in terms of where people assess them to be in terms of enrichment levels. I think it's rumored 60. Some will tell you plus minus 10 of that, minus 10, plus 10. I'll just say that they don't do themselves any justice when they allow and when I say, I know it's not the whole country, for a certain group of people or leaders, even to your point that you did a great job of explaining, death to America was never mean all of America die. And I don't want to revisit that because you did a great job of overseeing that. However, you don't do yourself any favors when you state things in public fashions or in speeches with a lot of, because obviously there's language barriers and things like that for interpretation. And then you allow people with the very intent and narrative set in their head to drive a point across that you're this radicalized X and Y and that you're going to use nukes to literally wipe a country off the face of the earth. So I'm not defending it or justifying it. I'm just saying that's typically the counterpoints. And then when you talk about the, I don't remember the bill or the agreement name, but with the IAEA, when Iran was brought into the organization to supervise them, we don't need to do that tonight. But when you go back to Barack Obama's administration, their pursuit, their thought was, if you can be supervised and checked in on, then to your point, Kawa, you should be able to develop. Like, who are we to stop you? So that was the intent. I don't know if that's what happened, because that's just life. There is an intention of things, and there's an outcome or reality of how it ends up happening. So we're here now.
It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see, like, in a parallel universe, if Iran was like, yes, we're enriching uranium. Yes, we'll allow inspections. We'll give you full transparency, because if you're telling us that you're not a threat to us, then we will give you transparency and we're not a threat to you. And now if Israel says we have nukes, dude, Israel, if you guys have nukes, who cares? Don't sit there and lie about it, because everybody knows that you're lying. Everybody, there's so much evidence now. There's scientists that have come out, American, Israeli, all kinds of people have come out and said, you guys have nukes. So now just say, yep, we got nukes. Our bad for lying. Now let the IAEA come in. Yeah, our bad for lying. Cool. I mean, people could accept that, but then let the IAEA come in, do their inspections, and now if we have full transparency that Iran and Israel both have nukes, but they're both fully complying, then what's the big deal?
Yeah.
Right. But it can't be that simple. It can't be, because we just don't want them to have nukes. And then of course Iran's going to be like, well, F you guys, everybody else has nukes. You don't want us to have nukes? We will. But let's just take nukes out of the situation for a second. Nobody talks about Iran's other capabilities. Did you know that Iran has tens of thousands of those ballistic missiles, those hypersonic? I don't know if they have tens of thousands of the hypersonic ones, I know they probably have thousands by now, but they have tens of thousands of ballistic missiles that can reach Israel, that can reach other places. That is a bigger threat than any nuke, because again, we're talking about worst case scenario where somebody hits that button and here goes this nuke, and then now you see all these nukes flying towards each other. That's the end of the world. No person yet is crazy enough in Iran or Israel or anybody else that would hit that button. But the bigger threat is the ballistic missiles that are pointed at every US base on its borders, the ballistic missiles that are pointed at every other European city that it can launch and reach. That's the bigger threat. Nobody cares about that though. I mean, if we're just talking about ballistic missiles, Iran would wipe Israel off the face of the earth with just their ballistic missiles. They don't need a nuke for that.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, and then I don't know what the percentage and rating on the Iron Dome is, but I would imagine it's not perfect. You know what I mean? It doesn't bat 1,000. So yeah.
I mean, just with the before the ceasefire, there was 5 important sites in Israel that Iran successfully hit with their missiles. There were 5 military/government installations that had either intel gathering capabilities, or that was kind of maybe a hub for Israel's rockets. I know one was like the Mossad headquarters, which is deep underground. And there's a couple other, I forget the other 2 sites, but I mean, Iran and Israel wants to hide that. Israel wants to hide the damage that Iran did. That's why they're punishing their own citizens for the live streams that were happening on YouTube during those. They were hunting those people down and putting them in jail because they were live streaming the type of damage that Iran was doing with their ballistic missiles. Israel doesn't want to show you that. They don't want to show you how much damage has been done. But I guess now it's like we had this ceasefire lane, but we both knew the ceasefire wasn't going to last.
Well, and I'll tell you this is just because 2 presidents say, okay, ceasefire, done, it's not that easy. You're going to have local tactical level commanders, operational level commanders. You're going to have people on both sides that are in organizations not directly associated with the government, indirectly or covert operations that are going to do things. I mean, think about it. If 3 Hamas people go into Israel and kill, and I'm just using this as an example, I'm not saying this happened, and kill 3 people at a bus stop, is that the government of Iran? I mean, you could make an assumption. You could say, well, this is proxy, but it's not them launching an ICBM or a formal munition. So the ceasefire should remain in place. But you and I both know, what if Israel's still launching raids into the West Bank, or launching raids or doing stuff in, with Gaza right now as we speak? And that topic, Gaza ceasefire and the nuclear program, we kind of focus on the nuclear program. The bigger piece is the Gaza ceasefire. Okay, the ceasefire is just a singular statement in action. What now comes? What's the rest? How do you fix the problem? How do you go in there and provide some kind of aid? I don't know if you know this. People don't know this about Americas, but when we went through Iraq and we jacked that place up, we spent a lot of our time handing water out and trying to help people. What's that called? A med cap and all these other things, like handing medicine out, treating people, seeing how we could help. Like, that's what America typically has tried to stand for, is like, yeah, we'll defeat you in war, but we'll also try to at least assist you in making sure that innocent people and people that have nothing to do with a conflict can receive food, water, medicine, and treatment that we can provide to them. And I think I don't know if I've heard of any stories of anyone being there other than nonprofits and humanitarian organizations trying to go into Gaza, but they can't because it's not even that safe to do right now to even render their aid because of fear of indirect fire and other things happening there.
Yeah. The Gaza ceasefire is one of many ceasefires that have been negotiated, which Hamas have agreed to, and then Israel has somehow violated. It's always the case. It's really a case of Israel reloading. It's like when your gun's out of ammo and you need to top off a new magazine. There's a lull in the fire, and really the only time Israel will even entertain a ceasefire is because they're low on munitions. And I know that I'm putting it in a simplistic kind of term, but that's the bottom line. As soon as they get another re-up from the U.S., they're just going to continue. The ceasefire will get broken by Israel again, and then they'll continue to kill a bunch of Palestinians, gain more ground. I mean, right now, the last thing I read on Gaza is that Israel has, or the IDF has, about 65% of Gaza contained or occupied. 65%. Imagine where roughly 2 million Palestinians are supposed to go in that 35% that's left. Where are they supposed to go? When they go to the food sites, the GHF or Gaza Humanitarian, whatever that contracting company is that is overlooking the aid sites, the HA sites, where Palestinians are basically getting shot. They purposely put those humanitarian aid sites in open fields. If you look at them, they purposely put them in open fields so that when you see all these videos of the Gazan Palestinians going to get their HA, their rice or their clothes or their flour, whatever it is, they have to cross an open field, like World War I trench warfare, where they have to cross this open field to get to the HA, where there's U.S. contractors and IDF that are apparently controlling this thing and handing it out or rationing it, and then they have to get back across. These people are getting shot at as they're trying to get to the HA sites, of course, from the IDF, because IDF has been murdering them for years. But now you got U.S. contractors that are shooting at them, and we just saw videos of U.S. contractors talking in this video, shooting at these Palestinians, and then one of them yells something to the effect of, "I think you got one." I think you hit one. I mean, yeah. Right. So the next time, now that we have a U.S. face on the ground in Gaza, also killing Palestinians, don't be surprised when we have some embassy somewhere or we have some attack in the U.S. and because this is what gets us here in the first place, us constantly sticking our noses in people's business. And then being the ugly American, in this case, shooting at Palestinians. Your job is not there to go shoot at people. Your job was to go there and facilitate humanitarian aid being issued to the Palestinians in a safe manner to protect yourselves, the IDF, and the Palestinians. But no, you just joined forces with the IDF, and now you're just taking shots into an open field of Palestinians that are hungry and starving. That's not a good look for America, bro.
Yeah, so I've pulled up a few things while you were talking. I think it says roughly control 65%, and there's some Gaza authorities claiming up to 77% of Gaza is controlled by IDF. And then as of 6 days ago, Israel strikes pound Gaza, killing 60 ahead of U.S. talks on ceasefire. So those are I'm just pulling up, and this is theguardians.com, Reuters, Yahoo News, and Wikipedia.
Yeah,
for people's.
I mean, you could pull it up on ChatGPT. Roughly 100 people have been dying in Gaza for the last 2 weeks. Since the whole Iran-Israel thing happened, Israel has really scaled up their operations in Gaza because everyone's so focused on Iran and this and that they have been killing 100 people in Gaza every day since the initial Israeli strike on Iran. 100 people.
And I think I'm searching this right now because okay, and this is like an exercise for me, Cal, and you're going to laugh. When you're not going to laugh, you're going to say, Lane, you hear me talk about this all the time. Total fatalities in Gaza right now. These are estimates. 57,000 Palestinians killed. Now, to put that in context, I'll get the context later, and then I'll hear your thoughts, and I'll get the context I'll provide. 57,000. Reuters and Al Jazeera confirm more than 56,000 deaths. And Michael Spagat estimates over 80,000 total fatalities from October through January of 25. That's January. That's not even all of this year. So the reason I bring this up is, let me get your thoughts on those numbers real quick so I can pull two more numbers up while you kind of give your thoughts on that.
Well, I just want to caveat. I think the 57 or 58,000 that they're citing, that's just confirmed dead.
That's not injured. That's not multiple.
Yeah, that's not injured. That's not maimed. Now we're not talking about the 17,000 children that are without limbs and amputated. We're not talking about the estimated or guesstimated roughly 200 to 250,000 Palestinians that have yet to be found underneath all the rubble. We're just talking about the ones that they have confirmed that have body tags or body bags and toe tags, right? Not the injured, not the kids, and definitely not the ones that they haven't found yet. Where does 300,000 Palestinians go? You know, all underneath the rubble. It's going to take decades to clear that rubble out. You're going to find bones underneath that rubble. I guarantee you, Lane. They can't hide that. They're not going to be able to hide it. We'll
So
see.
keep those numbers in mind as you were talking. Hopefully my keyboard's not coming through. My next logical question, like what we're doing right now, and I don't want the audience to be like, what is Lane doing? Is he literally Googling during a podcast? Yes, I am, because I want people to see how simple this is. How many Hamas
And
members are there?
You can't memorize.
Well, my
everything.
thing is how many Hamas members? Because right, we just said 56,000 up to 80. So in my mind, I'm like, man, Hamas must be 100,000 strong because we're going after Hamas, right? I'm playing the dumb. I don't mean dumb. I'm playing the American that sits in America that has never traveled or anything. You start looking at this, okay, well, Hamas is estimated to be between 20 and 30,000. Okay, there's some fratricide of war. We'll call it war to be gracious.
Collateral
So okay,
damage.
50,000. Nope, we're at 80. Oh, okay. Well, let's put that in comparison to the most recent conflict as an American that we can relate to. How many total service members died in Iraq and Afghanistan over 20 years? 4,600. And that's not all combat. That's including hostile and a hostile, 4,200. So I think that number is more in like the mid threes of actual killed in action. Again, that's not, I think total number, they say we're 32,000 were wounded in action. Think about that. That's losing legs, arms, eyes. These are American soldiers that spent 2 decades, and we're saying in 2 years they have 15x'd that number. I don't care who you are, what you believe in. In no way can you make that math work in a rational brain and say, okay, they're attacking Hamas because Hamas is under all these hospitals. Hamas is 30 to 40,000 at most. We've killed between 50 and 80. So what are the ages of the people that have been killed? Well, 40% of are adults, and somewhere between 30 and 40% are people 16 or younger. Well, that's weird. So now I start thinking from, I'm just doing a college research project here. Something's not adding up. You know what I mean? So my point is, you don't have to be well read up on this as Kawa is and can say that through the Fox course and multiple other special forces training courses where you were focusing and researching and learning about the region because being the special forces group you were in, this was your region to specialize and understand. And then you being Muslim benefits, when I say benefits, it gives you perspective that old Caucasian Lane Green Beret is not going to have. You know what I mean? So I think you have a unique perspective of being a Green Beret, being an American, being Afghani, and then saying, hey guys, look, I'm pro-America. Check the hat out. I wear it everywhere. I'm proud. But at the same point, we're not perfect. And there's debauchery, to say the least. And I'm keeping my clean language here because I kind of went off the rails last episode. My wife may have given me a little look here and there. Like, man, you got a little spicy. And not to be, anyway. So you do all that, you package that, and you go, okay, even if we think Cal is opinionated or Cal has only seen it from one side, I would argue, okay, we're not talking Cal's opinion here. I just read you numbers. And these are ChatGPT numbers that each number has somewhere between 3 and 5 sources that range from Reuters and Al Jazeera. These are like international. These aren't Fox. These aren't CNN. So I would just caution Americans, if you hear Kawa talk about this stuff and it comes across to you as anti-American, I would argue that that's the problem. The problem is for someone to be analytical or say or be critical of their government or something that we're doing, and you think that that's non-American or un-American. One, I know Kawa doesn't care, not to speak for you, Kawa. Two, I just think that more Americans should type into this stuff. And that doesn't mean that Hamas is okay. That doesn't mean Iran hasn't had influence in the region. It can also mean that Israel needs to chill the hell out, go home, and have dinner with their families and stop destroying others' families. So that's a long soliloquy. I don't know if I'm credible in saying all that, but because I'm not credible and understand the complete history of this, I just think a quick rundown of the numbers should open people's eyes if your historical context and understanding isn't doing it.
Yeah. No, I mean, appreciate that. I want people to obviously learn more about this because it affects our way of life here. anything I talk about internationally, I always bring back to our homeland, and it has everything we've been doing in Israel for the last few decades has impacted American life. And we don't have to bring it down to the price of a gallon of milk, but overall, economically, we've been hurt by continuously giving billions and billions of dollars to a foreign nation. Not just one, Israel is just one of many countries we give foreign aid to, but they just happen to have the heftiest foreign aid package that we have to offer. And then they always get what they want, and we never say no. And no politician is in office long enough to care about the Americans 10, 20 years down the line. So that's why the cycle continues. And the reason I speak out about it is because I want you guys to understand what got us here in the first place. If you don't understand that, and you can't do some research and look at the history and reverse engineer some things, then you're a waste. Your opinion is a waste. You're just a breathing mouthpiece. You have no weight in our society. And if you don't stand for something, and I don't even care, you don't have to stand for Gaza or anything. You don't have, but like stand for something, because then you're just, again, you are. When we were talking about earlier about we don't want a bunch of humans multiplying in the country that are pointless and just mouth breathers. That's exactly what we're talking about. You guys need to educate yourselves. And I get this all the time. Like Lane said, "Oh, you seem radicalized. Your thoughts are a little extremist. You're this, you're that." How? Because I'm trying to understand the other side. How am I now anti-American or radicalized? Because I'm trying to maybe give you guys some context on Iran, their culture, their religion, their history, why they feel the way they feel. What could we have possibly done? If you think I'm anti-American after all that, or because I criticize Trump, too much, if you think I'm anti-American, well, then you're just narrow-minded and you have a one-track mind, and we probably won't ever see eye to eye, because those type of closed-minded people, Lane, it's like talking to a wall.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't stop me.
Tribalism, man. I tell people, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. If you're on your side of the aisle and you just see rose tinted glasses, everything's great, and you can't be critical of your own, then you have no business being critical of the other side.
Yeah. I mean, unless you MAGA folk want to crown Trump king, then realize that he has roughly 3 years left.
Yeah.
3.5 years he has left, and he's gone. Who's gonna be MAGA then? Right? MAGA is gonna die with Trump, because that was his saying, right? And who are you guys gonna cling on to then? JD Vance, the meme star of 2025, bro.
Hey, you say that,
Right?
but hey, he's got a chance, and I don't think it's because of his. I think he'll be able to.
The guy that grew up in politics saying he hates
No,
Trump.
I know they're gonna ride a
time.
wave, though. They're gonna try to. It may not be called MAGA, but they're the continuation of this. Well,
He said he hates MAGA.
No, I know.
JD Vance said
no, I
he
know,
hates
I get
MAGA.
it. My point is I think the other side has some stuff to do if they want a fair chance to not let another Republican win this next election. I don't think the work is indicative of the Republicans. I think the work is indicative on the other side to unify what their message is and to get their stuff straight. Because I can tell you some of these things that they keep fighting, and I hate to say this term because it sounds like a repetitive term from Fox News or Scott Jennings from CNN. Being on the wrong side of these 80-20 issues, America has spoken. They're telling you what they care about, what they don't. They care about their wallets. They care about whatever. All these social progressive issues that affect less than 2% of our population is not a platform to run on. You need to get back to the economy, back to balancing the budget, and back to putting money and taking care of Americans. If you can't get in that game, you're not going to get elected in today's society. Young kids want to know how they're going to get rich.
You saw what it did. You saw what it did to the Democratic Party. It decimated the Democratic Party. It's years and years of DEI, LGBTQ, transgenderism. It's critical race theory. It's equality in this. It's all these. It's BLM. It's Antifa. It's all these things that were social structures to divide this nation, who had their core followings, but everybody on the outside looking in knew that was not the right side of things to get on. And when the Democrat Party, when I say decimated, who is the face of the Democrat Party today?
I have no idea.
There is no face.
You can pick a few
They're
extremists,
lost.
and then I mean, if you said, Lane, name me one moderate liberal right now, I think what's his name that retired out of West Virginia recently? What was his name? Kawa, popular. I can't remember his name.
West Virginia.
He 2 years ago, I think he left. But the point is, there's just not a lot. And right now, people will tell you conservatives, they're all far right. I'm like, dude, people call Joe Rogan far right now. I'm like, have y'all listened to this guy? This guy is not, Joe Rogan is not far right. He believes in social programs. He doesn't like homeless people being on the streets. He loves to smoke weed. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think the definitions of far right and far left have gotten way too exaggerated. I would argue that the majority of Americans are in the middle. They're not far anything. And the only people that are far are the people that are the loudest. Therefore, they tend to people think that represents the party or represents anyway,
I don't think anybody wants to be far.
No.
I don't think the far right, like, I don't think most Americans want to be far right or far left.
No, I think these issues
I
you
think-
just discussed have pushed people to their non-tolerance, like in your face.
Yeah.
I don't care what you are, who you are. I'm going to live my life. And if you try to tell me how to live my life, F you. That's pretty much, I think, the majority of America's sentiment now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And I hate to say this, Kawa, because it's not just Christians. I've had this talk with a few people. I am Christian. I would like to think. I have had a conversation with some family members, and I've said this, and PBD said it, and I thought it made a lot of sense. Tolerant Christians created this vacuum. 20, 30 years ago, a Christian was like, this is Christianity. This is what we believe in. We're not bending. And then through the pursuit of acceptance and wanting people to feel comfortable in their own skin and their insecurities, Christians were the ones who started saying, you know what? Fine, we'll support that. We'll support this. Do your thing. I don't care. You're right. I don't know why I care so much. Well, fast forward 15 years, and now we're telling people how they can talk, what can be put in schools, what can't be put in schools, what bathrooms people can go in. Like, it's just gone awry. And the original intent was to make sure that you want to have same-sex marriage, you should be able to do that. You want to dress up as another, whatever, because I'm gonna tell you, I don't care. But what you're not gonna do is tell me at a restaurant what I can and can't say, or how I should tailor my language to make you feel comfortable. So we don't have the time to address all this stuff. But I always say, tolerant Christians, through the pursuit of acceptance and wanting people to feel comfortable in their own skin and getting pushed on abortion and other things, became acceptance to it. And then over the span of 20 years, starting back just after the Bush admin, I'd say Bush admin leading into Barack Obama's administration, it just that's where the seeds were planted, not by Barack Obama himself. I'm not that conservative that just likes to trash on him all the time, but through the progression of that Senate and Congress through his tenureship of 8 years, going into Trump's tenureship, the liberals of that Congress and Senate, and then leading into Biden's, it is just 2 years before Biden, at the end of his administration, it was just like this revolt. People are over it, dude. Even people who are liberals, who are moderate liberals, are like, all right, guys, enough. Like, can't call myself a liberal anymore because I feel like this stuff has gone too far. So I just think our country is at a point where traditional liberals need to get back to economics, balancing the books, and addressing political issues. These social issues need to be governed at the state and local municipality levels that they affect. Federal government needs to stay out of this stuff.
Yeah. And that's kind of putting it simply. And I know there's a lot of red tape there, but there's a lot of oversight or a lot of overstep. I don't know how to say it correctly, but there's too much involvement. When we say too much government, this is it. And Republicans used to be the party of less government and more power to the people, and it has it. I can't remember the last time Republican Party was actually about less government. I feel like both parties want more government because that's where the overall pressure is. The pressure is more government overreach, more government oversight, more government regulations. We can get into all kinds of stuff: digital currency, digital IDs. They're doing away with passports now. You're no longer going to get stamps in your passports. You just get like a little digital whatever. Everything's digital these days because that's the way of the future. but it's really the way of control, I think. So politics is going to be interesting as we grow old, Lane, because I think what we're going to see in the next 20, 30 years is we're gonna get to a place where the the amount of control that the government has on the American citizen is going to be that is going to be that which reflects almost similarly like what a prison system looks like.
Yep.
The amount of monitoring, surveillance, control. I mean, once the digital currency comes into play, that's it. You take somebody's money away and shut down their bank accounts, and or they can't shop at a grocery store because their social credit score is low because they made a post that goes against the government, right? Or because for whatever other reason they haven't updated their vaccinations yet, so therefore their credit card or whatever doesn't work at the grocery store, because before you can buy groceries you have to go get your vaccines. This is where we're headed. And I'm going down like a tangent, but like when I talk about electricity and everything going green in these green programs, I personally think that is the fast track for getting to that. Everything that all these green programs are a fast track to control. So that's just my kind of I don't know. Those are my thoughts, but I don't see how making everything electric and making everything Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity, how that's going to benefit us. If I could control it somehow, if I had a firewall up that the government couldn't access, yeah, but they access everything. So we'll see.
So not to segue us here, but I'd like to get your thoughts on the 4 executives that were commissioned into the Army Reserves as lieutenant colonels.
Oh yeah, the 4 executives. They're basically tech execs, right? One from Meta, one from not Apple. What was
It's
the other
Palantir.
Palantir.
Meta, but he also works some other places. And
there's 2 from Palantir actually.
Well, yeah, one used to be with Palantir. He is no longer with them.
Okay.
But yeah, so
I had
so Shyam Sankar is the Palantir CTO, Andrew Bosworth is the Meta CTO, and then Kevin Will, OpenAI CPO, and then Bob McGrew, OpenAI, former OpenAI exec, and I think maybe he was with Palantir, but don't quote me on that.
So they are now.
It's like a lieutenant colonel. They commissioned him into the Army Reserves for what I think they're calling innovation task force or something.
Well, why do we have to make these people active duty military for them to do?
Well, they're not active; they're reserves. Not to play semantics with you. But
why are we giving them rank?
Well, I'll tell you why. So I'm somewhat close to this issue, just given my profession. So I have to. You'll see me. I'm going to put on some tap dancing shoes here, and I'll try to tap dance my way through this topic. Okay. The first steps is a few things that are going to require. I think this is an assumption of mine, by the way. I don't have inside information on this. I think their ranks had to be commission based because of some of the decisions and movement of money within the defense budget that's allotted to that task force is going to have some officer commissioned authority behind it. As you know, I'm not going to insult your intelligence, but in the Army, like enlisted guys aren't signing authorizations on spending levels or caps of X, Y, and Z. Question number 2,
right?
You didn't ask this question, but I'll just go ahead and shoot into the things I've seen, some concerns that people have brought up. Step number 2. I've seen some service members on social media. Again, people I don't know intimately or personally, but they'd be like, why do these guys, they haven't been deployed. Why do they get lieutenant colonel rank? Okay. I can understand that. By most soldiers' perspective, Marines, airmen, lieutenant colonel is a high rank. It is a lot of money.
Right.
I can see a point where someone says, I'll give you an example. Elon Musk was a special government employee. He had a certain time cap on that. I'm assuming there's a multitude of reasons why these people had to be commissioned. One, I'm going to introduce some people into this crazy fact, as we think lieutenant colonel rank is high and the income is decent. These guys are all worth somewhere between, the highest guy is estimated between 860 million, and the other guy is not released. The lowest number I see on this chart right now, estimated net worth, is 16 million. I can assure people, for the salary compensation, they have no interest in. We're talking pennies to these people.
Especially as the
Now,
reservists.
I would assume, and I don't have proof on this either, that these guys have signed NDAs and conflict of interest statements pretty much saying that anything they touch, they cannot award contracts to the companies they come from, where they have a non-compete on the backside. Now, I'm here to tell you guys, as a person in the defense tech industry, stuff happens here and there. Every company's competitive and every company's out there trying to win contracts. That's the nature of the beast. But I will also tell you, I can personally say I have met many executives and many people that work within this industry that are veterans. My boss is a veteran. My founders are veterans. These guys are still, they want to win. They want to grow the company, yes, and there's some financial gain to that. However, there are people that still intimately care about the United States Armed Forces and our ability to fight and win in today's wars. And I'll tell you, with drones and a bunch of other technology gaps that we have, our acquisition system and regulations and the FAR and all these other things that kind of make this very complex and navigate, from being able to, for the government to procure technology. Your Green Beret regiment right now, Kawa, is not balling with a lot of money. It's just like, y'all are so expensive, and I can say this somewhat informed, y'all are so expensive to train, educate, TDY, special warfare, Kennedy Special Warfare Training Center, and all the schoolhouses that are there, y'all's J sets, everything that requires you guys just to do your job. And I think we said this in a previous episode, absorbs so much of the regiment, the First Special Forces Command budget and USASOC, that there's just not a lot of extra to go buy things that aren't tied to beans, bullets, and training indigenous and other forces, right? And unconventional warfare. These guys, I can promise you, are going to say, hey, look, we just scaled our companies in this extremely difficult environment that is the defense industry complex, and we don't need to go down the road of how that is a whole money game, and I get it. But these specific companies are artificial intelligence and other technologies that I don't know if we can depend on the Department of Defense to internally develop and get a product to scale in the end users, and then someone manage that product. So I think I have hopefully and properly balanced my opinions with my involvement in the industry to paint a picture to the young service members that think a guy who's worth millions getting commissions as lieutenant colonel, that rank may mean a lot to you. I can tell you, I don't think these guys asked for a rank. I don't think they cared. I'm pretty sure they said they were willing to do this, and somewhere on the legal side of the house, lawyers and the chief of the staff of the Army and his office had to do some homework to find out how this had to be done, and some conclusion was brought that they had to be commissioned because they had to be paid for their services to prevent conflict of interest and all this other stuff. So again, I think these four individuals did not ask for a rank. I think they were asked, will you accept this rank? Because we need you to have a rank for these reasonings. I don't have the inside information, and that's an assumption on my behalf. I don't want to be naive. The second point is, I agree with you. I think they probably feel uncomfortable. I would argue that they will probably not wear uniforms on a day-to-day basis. I would just...
No, they look like fucking nerds. I mean, look at this photo. I'll post this on the video, but look at these guys. They look like nerds.
I think I'll tell you the reason these guys are getting involved is not a company aspect. They're getting involved because the Department of Defense has failed at innovating. You have a requirement system, you have an acquisition arm, and then a purchasing arm of the government. All of those things are regulated by a bunch of regulations to prevent conflict of interest and companies doing this stuff unfairly. The problem is the acquisition corps, and I can only talk for the Army. The acquisition corps, as a personnel within that corps, are not the problem. They're great Americans. They do their job very well, and they have a lot of work on their desk. However, the challenge becomes is there's not enough people to do the amount of work in purchasing that's happening. Another thing I would offer, Kawa, is not to, I sound like I work for one of these guys. I promise you I don't. These four guys have successfully scaled companies, meaning they have an intimate knowledge on how to take the money available and put it to good use. Us in uniform, sometime we're in this la land of every year we get a new check, and that check says we have this much money this year. And believe it or not, guys, there's no surplus. At the end of the year in the government, they say you must spend this money or it goes away. So I'm oversimplifying this, but what I'm saying is in the government, we oftentimes get used to a budget number and we spend to that number versus a company says, we made this money. How much do we invest? How much do we cut bonus checks? And how many people do we need to let go because we didn't hit our number? So I think these guys are being hired for their legitimate experience. And I say legitimate, and I mean that in the most respectful way possible, of actually balancing a P&L sheet and scaling a company for hundreds of millions of dollars. And look, they've done it through direct sales. They've also done it, and you're going to love this, Kawa, through congressional liaison, lobbying Capitol Hill and getting politicians behind certain products and certain capabilities that they need. They think the warfighter needs, and then that politician will get a couple of people and lobby and then get that thing funded, whether it be through congressional ads or whatever. So that's a quick snapshot for people that aren't in this practice. I'll tell you, being on the civilian side, I'm just a person who works for a private company. Interfacing with the federal government is a super complex environment to learn. I can't just go to Colonel, your boss, Kawa, and say, hey, you want to buy this? He'll look at me and be like, I love that. I don't have a checkbook, brother. I don't write checks. So I have to go to DC and the program offices or the higher level of commands to try to get this capability in end users' hands. Agree with you. Right. I understand most people's common understanding of the situation. Why do we need these companies, these people to do this? I would argue is because everyone is saying that we're not innovating fast enough. And I'll try to shut up here soon, but China and them don't have a DFAR. They don't have a FAR regulation. China says, we want this product, make this product, and they don't have rules or self-imposed rules that they abide by. So over the last 3 decades, a lot of these countries that we've had decades leg up on an innovation, we still have an innovation leg up, but not as much of a gap as we used to. So I think the goal is to widen that gap again, put the money to good use in terms of technology. And hopefully, I say hopefully, because I know there's a risk here, is that these guys aren't lining their pockets or setting in the environment up for those companies to win even more.
Oh, well, you know that's happening.
Well, Lane Duhan's not winning.
I was just saying that, if they're not indirectly winning, they're winning somehow. Because you know how it is, man. This government, once you get to a certain level, it's about who you know and not necessarily how much you know. And that's how you land jobs in the White House and other stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's different. That's why there's a lot of skepticism, because it's different. We've never seen this before where 4 people, let alone 1, get brought up on stage and raise their right hand, and in 1 minute they go from chief executive officers or executive officers of a company to now lieutenant colonels in our military. And so, yeah, there's definitely some things that needed to be talked about there. But I guess we'll see, because this is just the beginning of this. We'll see how this develops. I mean, everything we talked about today is developing as we speak. We're always going to be behind the power curve on these news events and the updates, but we'll get them to you guys as fast as we can. Obviously, everything we talked about today, from the big, beautiful bill to the tariffs to Iran, Israel, all that's going to evolve, and we'll stay on top of it for you guys. Hopefully this episode kind of gave you some maybe introductory level or some familiarization to some of these topics. But like we say, don't take our word for it. Obviously, do your own research and learn for yourselves, because we need more educated Americans, not just a bunch of followers that are just on board with whatever the most popular guy says. And that's kind of the point of this podcast, really, is to be the devil's advocate in some aspects of domestic and foreign policy. Lane, you got anything else?
Yeah, I did not. Y'all bear with me on this. I think I'll get through this pretty easily. I don't want it to do something, Cal, and I didn't bring it up to you. I'm just thinking about it. I told Cal a short story. I don't want to sound cheesy and dedicate an episode to something, but as we're going through this, I just feel compelled. One of my buddies reached out today and asked me if he would send me a hat if I would wear it during an episode. And I'll tell a lot of people, if you have a business or a company, veteran, non-veteran, whatever you're doing, and you have merch and you want to send me or Kawa a hat, I can't speak for him. I'll speak for myself. I'll gladly wear it, as long as you're not condoning some crazy business or immoral stuff. But I love supporting small businesses. This is not a business, however. My buddy Carl Wormter lost his son just over a year ago to a boating accident. Carl Wormter was a platoon sergeant with me. We served together. And I tell this short story is he was picked to be the first sergeant of a company because our first sergeant was leaving. And he said, no, I think Lane should have it. I think he'll do better at it. And then, in the Army, Kawa, that's unheard of. So, because people love their ego to say like, oh, I'll get this opportunity. So anyway, I say all that to
Get
say,
very political.
one, Carl, I would be honored to wear any hat that you send me on behalf of that memorializes your son. Two, not to say dedicate this episode, but just want to give a shout out to Miss Charlene, his mother, Amanda, and Carl, stepmother and father of them. I'm sure it's been a tough year for you guys. It's just recently passed the 1 year anniversary, and I think it's called Gloucester or Gloucester. I can't remember how it's pronounced in Virginia. That high school acknowledged him during graduation last month, so or in end of May, June. So I just want to give a shout out to Bryson Wormter. Rest in peace, brother. Your family loves you, or they love you dearly. They miss you, and they're memorializing you and ensuring that the world remembers you. And from us to you, we pray that your family, finds the solace that they can find in a tragedy. And Carl, just keep your head up. You're a great father. You got a son and some other stuff to look forward to. So I know as easy as it is for me to say, we're thinking about you. God bless you. Y'all stay moving, take care of your family. Hopefully quick stories like that remind you to love on your people. And, in this crazy world of negativity and the things going on, let's just keep close to the ones that mean the most to us and try to enjoy every minute we can. So thank you, and good night.
I'll add to that. Do we have like a GoFundMe or anything?
We don't.
For them
they did
that we
a
can
quick
post them?
fundraiser, but if anyone wants to get in contact, I think they're doing a scholarship fund for them. And I wouldn't ask for anyone to give. I think if they do anything like a merch or anything to memorialize him or support the scholarship fund that they're going to start, I'll maybe come back on the episode or post that in some comments or the future episodes or whatever if people want to look into that. His name was Bryson Wormter.
Yeah, we'll have to check with YouTube, but I think we can post probably some of those links in the description of this podcast episode for sure, or maybe a future one when we get them. But let me add to that, because as most of you have heard, that there has been a lot of rain here in Texas recently. There's been a lot of flash floods with some of the river systems that we have here in Texas. There's a lot of fatalities from this flood. There's at least 20 something people, 22 I think I last heard, that are still missing, and I think those are mainly the children that were at the summer camp. They were like at a Christian summer camp near the river. Those children are still missing. Several other people are still missing. This is an ongoing event here in Texas. It doesn't affect me directly. All my family members are safe and everybody that I know is safe. Although people that I know in Austin are just getting poured on right now. And there are some people in like flood zones and stuff that have had to evacuate as well. I just want to send my prayers and my thoughts out to all of those families who are still searching for their family members, for their children. My heart goes out to you guys. And stuff like this happens all the time and all over the world. But when it's this close to people that it sucks, because these are people just like us that are now can't find their family members. And I saw a video of the river as it started flooding, and man, it did not take long whatsoever. In fact, people in this video, there was people on the far side of the river that their vehicles almost got washed away because they couldn't get to their vehicles in time. I mean, it just came like out of nowhere, the way this video kind of depicted it. So all of our prayers and thoughts out to those families that are suffering right now, that are going through it. We hope that you guys find some resolve in that. And if there's some funds that are organizations that I find here close to Texas or in Texas that I can post and hopefully help out, I will do that as well. But with that wraps up the episode for tonight, guys. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Obviously, we're talking about things that are all over the media, so if it was repetitious to you, we apologize for that. But if you got something out of it, great. We can't cover all the details, but we try to as much as we can without making this a 2 or 3 hour podcast. But obviously, like I said, these are things that are ongoing, and we'll catch up as they evolve, and we'll bring them to you as much as we can. In the meantime, your feedback is important on all the platforms, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram. All the feedback is important because it helps us. The feedback you've given us so far has been great. because you're telling us kind of things that we're hidden on, and you're disagreeing with some things, and we love that. That's all we want, is an open forum. So don't forget to like, subscribe to the video, to the channel, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it if you want to. That obviously helps us in the algorithms. Stand by for a bunch of shorts that are coming on the vertical platforms. And with that, we will see you guys later. Happy belated 4th. By the way, we didn't really say that. We talked about the 4th, but happy belated Independence Day as well. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Cheers.